Peter, without further ado, take it away and please enjoy.
Thank you very much, Steph. Hi, everybody. Thank you for logging into Parking Network and for joining my webinar today. I hope this finds you well. As you see, we're going to be talking about phone-based payments for parking today. I'll look at how it's evolved from the early days, touch on some of the latest developments in payments, and ponder where it might be heading in future. As you know, NMI is a payment gateway. We process card payments, both from phones as well as from traditional parking meters, pay stations, and of course many other areas. I run product marketing for parking and our other self-service sectors. So how did it start? Well, in 2001 in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, a small team of innovators came up with the idea of using text for parking payment. It was using the principle of premium, so added cost SMS messages. It was very widely used and it was a highly successful scheme. In the UK in 2006, a company that was into telephone technology, Cobalt telephone technology, set up the Ringo system on their existing platform using IVR. That's interactive voice response. This is where you ring up and you've got the familiar voice that tells you to enter the number of hours you wish to park, punch in your credit card details and the expiry date and so on. And likewise, they really stole a march on everybody else in the UK, and it was very successful. In the US, in 2008, Miami became the first city to deploy a pay-by-phone system, and it was indeed pay-by-phone that deployed it. And then, of course, came the advent of smartphones, and we then had mobile optimized websites where it was much easier to enter in your data, like the location where you've stayed and your credit card details and so forth. And after that, of course, came apps where credit card credentials could be stored securely or tokenized, and then it could be called up, which meant you didn't have to re-enter credit card details every time you parked. So let's look at the key parts of a phone-based parking system. The first thing, determining location. Obviously, the system needs to know where you are as a driver, which car park you've used. And in the majority of cases, all that's needed is a simple sign with a location code. You punch that location code into your text or your app or your mobile website, and the system knows where you are. Geolocation is obviously a possibility with smartphones nowadays, but usually they rely on the driver to actually confirm the location code, even though it's been indicated by GPS. More recent developments are the use of QR codes. So you scan the QR code, saves again further button pushes, and being tried by Honk Mobile in Canada at the moment is NFC tags, which are embedded in the signage. And there's still further development on NFC tags in that certain phones will automatically instigate a payment session once a NFC tag has been read. The next thing is the means of interaction between the phone and the system itself. In the early days, it was a simple text message. Then it was a number, the IVR platform that you called and entered your details to. Then came the mobilized website. That's a website that's optimized for viewing on the small screen of a phone. And more recently, and the majority of systems nowadays do support an app which the user downloads. Number three is the means of payment. As we said, the very first systems used premium rate SMS. This then advanced into IVR systems, then card payment directly into a web form. There is also account-based payment. Some systems set you up as an account and you get billed at the end of the month if you're a corporate user or business user. In-app payment is the most widely used, though, for the phone-based parking systems nowadays. And there's a couple of screenshots there that show This was when I was parking nearby. I had a choice of 2 cards and Apple Pay that I could use directly from my Apple phone to pay. New development as of Q4 2020, app clips from Apple. These are like mini versions of an app that can be invoked whenever an NFC tag is scanned by the Apple smartphone. All that's necessary, once you've tapped on the NFC tag, it opens up a payment session. You can simply confirm, and it will use Apple Pay credentials, which are stored in the secure area of an iPhone to immediately make the payment. And last of all, the enforcement. There needs to be an enforcement system so that people that haven't paid and have parked will get an enforcement notice. This is usually done with a portable device, which is online, usually by 3G, 4G or whatever, to the payment system database. They usually employ a camera with date, stamp and geolocation so that it is satisfactory for evidence in the event of an appeal for the parking infraction. And CCTV can be used where there are a parking lot or on-street parking where there is good visibility of all of the cars that are using the spaces. So the big question is, will phone-based parking ever replace traditional meters? Certainly in these pandemic times, there's been much talk of not touching cash, and the idea of not having to touch a parking meter at all is obviously appealing. So let's first of all look at a cost comparison between a traditional pay and display, that's a multi-space meter as they're known in the US. The big chunk, of course, is the capital cost of the meter, the installation costs and the civils, that's the digging up the road or digging up the pavement in order to install the footings and the cabling. The cost ongoing of electricity, unless it's a solar powered machine. Most pay and display multi-space meters are remotely managed, so there's a SIM that needs to have the rental paid for, maintenance and cleaning, the cash collection, somebody needs to go out in a van securely collecting the money, and of course banking costs, card fees, that's levied by the payment gateway and the processor for the card transactions, and enforcement. And enforcing where there are pay and display tickets is quite slow because the enforcement official has to go around, view the tickets. A lot of them will be upside down in the dashboard of the cars that have been parked. So contrast that with pay using mobile. The capital cost, yes, it's significant. It's in servers, it's in software, it's in development and expertise, but that's all in the back end. Installation, straightforward. It's a simple sign. There's obviously no electricity, no SIM rental. Maintenance, there's obviously needing to be software patches, updates and enhancements as the service is developed. The only other things are card fees. NMI has to earn its fee somehow. We're staying business and we make a tiny slice on all of those transactions. And of course, there is the enforcement, which still has to be done, but it's faster. It can be done by license plate recognition, the operator going around with a small handheld device rather than having to peer into the windshield of each of the cars that have parked. But let's look at it from the driver's perspective. What if I'm from out of town and I'm just visiting the area or city? Do I really have to download an app in order to use the system? What if I've got an ancient Nokia 3310? Can I still use the service? And what happens if I simply can't get the app or I can't get the website to work? Who do I call when I can't get the system to take my payment? These all need to be considered. Lastly, is the mobile ubiquitous? Are there enough mobiles in circulation for a mobile-only payment system to become feasible? One that's acceptable to all stakeholders. If there's any hint of people not being able to use the system because they need to have a $600 smartphone, then obviously there will be people would cry foul. It's interesting that the City of Westminster in London just this year have started to decommission all of their on-street pay and display machines. You can see the picture there, they've all got a hood on, and now you look at the nearby sign for the pay-by-phone system. So mobile phone ownership in the world. The world population is currently around 7.8 billion, and this is how the number of smartphones and the number of all types of mobiles has risen dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years or so. If we look at the penetration of smartphones by country, it's interesting, the UK is actually top of the list. 82.9% of the population own one or more smartphones. In the US, they're third in the rankings. It's as high as 79.1% of the population. So this does lead you to believe that in metropolitan areas where the prevalence of mobiles will be even higher than the population average here, then somebody not having an appropriate type of phone really isn't part of the argument. So if you're thinking of commissioning a phone-based parking system, or you're even thinking about developing one yourself, what are the key success factors? Well, firstly, it's got to meet all of the user use cases. So it's got to cope with users having several vehicles, several phones, their business phone and their private phone. It's got to be able to support different payment methods. So that's all of the popular credit and debit cards. It needs to be able to support Apple Pay and Android Pay and any other XPay that may come along in the future. The best apps have mapping and space availability. If you've got a system which is mobile only, then it gives you the opportunity with clever software to indicate to an app where there are still vacant spaces probably available. The system's got to be able to support corporate and business counts, residence payments, residence permits for parking, and the best apps have a means of discount structures for loyalty. The enforcement has got to be straightforward and rigorous, and last of all, there has to be top-notch customer service. It's not going to be acceptable if people can't get in touch. So please do get in touch if you have any questions, but if an immediate question, then I'll wait for it via Stefan.
Here I am. Let me just mute. Yeah. Yeah, well done. We got a couple of questions in, but I'm also looking at the clock, Peter, if you don't mind. It's time to clear the stage for Scott with Park Assist. But okay, nevertheless, we will share our questions directly with you. But thanks so much for a wonderful presentation, and yeah, it's just time for the next one. So it was good to see you again, Peter, and hope to see you at the next virtual event as well. And thanks from the audience as well, by the way. So we got that in as a message. All right, take care and see you soon. Cheers.
All right, goodbye now.